And today, it is now a felony crime to deface a public symbol of pride in Washington.
Welcome everyone. My name is Sean, and today we're going to talk about the absolutely very serious crime, one of the most serious crimes in this entire country, and that is leaving skid marks on portions of the road that have gay pride flags painted on it. No, I'm not kidding about this. This is a nationwide problem, apparently. People are facing felony charges because of it, and we're all supposed to be very upset and not notice that the same left-wing prosecutors in many instances that don't want to prosecute actual criminals for anything are going super hard on these vandalism cases because, you know, this is what we need to spend our time on. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, thank you to everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money. Okay?
Josh, people are really upset about this. Even the mayor took to social media today saying this type of crime will not be tolerated here in St. Petersburg.
Now look, I gotta be perfectly honest with you guys out there in the audience. I'm not really into these LGBTQXXIIP community kind of stories. I'm not interested in pointing at weird looking person doing weird thing in the month of June and saying that's weird, because I feel like the internet.com and especially conservative online media is completely oversaturated with these kind of stories in that regard. However, and I do in fact mean how and then ever, when we get into the law enforcement realm, when we get into the insanity from the left wing and how all of a sudden public property has value like it's never had before, based on people driving in a bad way, by the way, but driving on the road, that's when I gotta get invested. That's when I'm interested in these particular stories. And the way that the local news covers the manhunt for a guy who will be facing felony charges for doing donuts on a gay pride flag that is painted on the ground, on the street where cars drive over it, I just find it to be amazing.
But nevertheless, some people in the LGBTQ community tell us they're now worried as Pride Month quickly approaches.
I think we all need to be careful now. There's people obviously out there to get us that are part of the LGBTQ, including myself.
Now look, I'm not trying to broaden this out to foreign policy issues or anything like that, but when this guy says we need to be alert, we need to be scared, we need to be worried because somebody did donuts on this flag thing that was painted on the road, I just want to point out that a very popular organization in these left-wing gay pride movements is called Queers for Palestine. Have you guys ever seen, and unfortunately I have, images of what happens in the Palestinian territories to people who commit the crime of being a gay? What we're talking about is people who will support that, on average, being upset about donuts on a road and saying that they don't feel safe.
Dr. Byron Green Collish is president of St. Pete Pride. He feels someone targeted the mural. He says the mural is visual representation that everyone is welcomed here.
The mural is really a public love letter to the residents of St. Pete. Being able to collaborate with the city and other pride organizations here in the city really feels like love and home.
St. Pete police say over the past week, 2 different vehicles have left tire marks on the mural.
But unfortunately, this kind of attitude, this kind of ridiculous misperception has spread all across this country. And yes, this is actually a story out of the state of Florida. Ron DeSantis should probably do something about this, because now St. Petersburg police have initiated a manhunt for the perpetrator of this crime of doing donuts on the gay pride mural thing that's painted on the ground, because God forbid you have skid marks from a tire on a portion of the road.
Sterling Long bartends at Rhythm Cowboy in the heart of downtown St. Petersburg. He was dismayed to walk out of his bar and see this.
I was actually very shocked and devastated that this happened because they just repainted this and the city spent a lot of money into this, and especially so close to Pride, I was very upset somebody would do this.
Again, he says he was shocked and dismayed that there were tire marks on this particular thing. Now, look, I understand that this, I guess, done intentionally is technically vandalism of public property, and that's not something something I'm in favor of, whether it be against our statues and things that actually represent American history that the left wing celebrates, or against businesses and all the things that were destroyed and the destruction of that was excused and celebrated during the Black Lives Matter riots, or whether it be this stupid painted mural thing on the floor of the crosswalk. But again, it's tire treads on the road, which should be expected whenever you put something on the road. But this guy's dismayed. He's horrified. He's still gonna donate money to Queers for Palestine because they really know how to treat the gays over there. But it's really heartbreaking and sad. But honestly, his take, the civilian take, although there are quite a few of them that are equally as absurd and equally as crazy, is not as interesting to me as the people in government in St. Petersburg, because they are freaking out.
Truck kind of pulled in to the circle there where the Pride mural is on the street, and then took off, accelerated, and left a street mark.
Just a few days later, police say another car came to the mural around 2:30 a.m. and did this.
It was clearly intentional because you see the car back up in the video that we have from a nearby business and speed through it. Now there is significant damage.
So how much is something like this going to cost?
More than $1,000, about $1,100 to repair it and to paint over it and remove all of those marks. So then it elevates this criminal mischief from a misdemeanor to a felony.
Yeah, so here you have this woman talking about all these different various instances of people driving in an aggressive way on these pride things that are painted on the road, and she says, listen, this is going to cost $1,100 to fix, therefore this mischief is now a felony. And again, they're initiating a manhunt on this, but the fact of the matter is, this is but one of many different instances that we've seen across this country of these kind of murals being vandalized in this way with, again, tire tread marks on the road. And this is definitely the most important hate crime, and we've actually seen arrests and stuff like this break down even as far across the country as the state of Washington.
So I talked to Kayla Gaines-Mickey earlier today. She says yesterday evening she was sitting on the patio of O'Doherty's when she noticed a few teenagers on Lime scooters purposely creating skid marks on the mural here. Now, the city just repainted the mural hours before that happened, and the Pride Parade is in just a couple of days.
So this story out of Spokane, Washington makes me laugh for a number of reasons. First and foremost, you have a witness that she said she talked to because this story is so important. She needed to get all this different interpretation. And this woman said she saw these teenagers on these little baby scooters creating lines on this mural, and it was just repainted. How horrible.
We see that you have done this thing, and we know your intentions, because people just don't go and do that without intention. You know, you don't destroy symbols without intention behind it.
I just want to point out that this woman's tattoos are horrible in every way. I'm not a fan of any kind of tattoos, but these in particular are not very nice. Also not a fan of the nose rig. Secondly, and this is something that I want to highlight, which is what she said, which is you don't destroy symbols without intention. Now, of course, these were kids, these were teenagers, and typically teenagers like to make skid marks on stuff, and skid marks tend to be more pronounced on things that have color. So in my opinion, this instance, unlike what we saw in St. Petersburg, might likely not be too anti the gays or whatever you want to call it. So this actually might have happened without intent behind it, but it's something for you to think about when these people are ripping down, burning the American flag, destroying statues, destroying businesses, and all these different other various things that happened in Washington state during the Summer of Love that was all approved of and rubber stamped by people like this, that was actually cheered on and excused in the name of St. George Floyd. So yeah, this is absurd in every way that people are taking this seriously, but I really want you guys to see how prosecutors are pursuing this case, and I want you to compare it to, you know, the street takeovers where people end up getting killed, hit by cars, where they actually commit violence against neighbors who try to break it up, where they're doing the same thing. They're doing donuts in a more extreme way, in a more dangerous way, creating problems across this country in a bunch of different left-wing cities, in a bunch of different left-wing states, and there are no consequences for that. That is allowed to pass completely because it didn't dare touch the gay crosswalk.
After talking to witnesses and looking at surveillance video, Spokane police arrested 3 people. 2 are minors and 1 is 19-year-old Ruslan Turco. Court docs say the teens also yelled slurs and curse words at several of the witnesses at O'Doherty's.
Now look, there may be intent if the teens were yelling slurs, I don't know about the curse words, at the witnesses, but I'm assuming that the witnesses were saying stuff trying to get them to stop, and maybe, just maybe, those slurs were completely unrelated to the gays, and it would be nice if the local news would actually inform me of whether or not they were related to the gays, so then I can potentially judge the intent. Now, of course, this would still be a hate crime committed against a crosswalk, so who cares? But I just want you to understand how hard prosecutors are going against these young people, and we have information on the 19-year-old because he's an adult. They give out his name and all that, but get a load of the bond amount that they wanted to put on this guy for damaging their sacred, most hollowest crosswalk.
Turco had his first appearance in court this afternoon. Prosecutors had asked the judge to set a $15,000 bond, since that's how much it costs to repaint the mural. But the judge released him under the condition he doesn't go near the crosswalk or the other teenagers.
There's so many interesting things about what was just said right there, and I'm gonna take them in whatever order I damn well please. So first and foremost, $15,000 bond for scraping your scooter tire on a gay pride mural. $15,000 because that is what it costs to repaint this. And secondly, we just heard moments ago in this very video that you're watching from a different local news segment how much it costs to paint this mural in the state of Florida, and what they said was the cleaning and painting would cost a total of $1,100. Obviously, something's going wrong in the state of Washington that they're spending almost 15 times the amount of money in order to paint this dumbass mural on this crosswalk over here as compared to the state of Florida, which just goes to show you how they just incinerate your tax dollars in these left-wing areas compared to a state that is run by a governor like Ron DeSantis, who is more efficient. Now, I know the cost of living is higher in a lot of parts of Washington as compared to a lot of parts of Florida, but 15 times higher for the same paint that you put on the road and the people to paint it? Absurd. Insane. But that is just allowed to pass? I'm supposed to not pay attention to that? That's absolutely crazy.
Beyond the fact that the city had just repainted the mural, the teenagers also were just hours away from potentially facing a felony. Washington state law changed today to include defacing public property, not just private property, in hate crime charges.
So I want you to think about that. So this is not the first time that this particular style of mural has been defaced recently, has had tire treads put on it, and all that. And in the previous history for Washington state, the hate crime charges, the defacing charges weren't a felony, they were a misdemeanor up until people started doing it against the gays. So the state of Washington actually passed a law. Now remember, they didn't pass a law to stop people from doing Chaz or CHOP or whatever you want to call it, seceding from the nation and trying to commit violence and destroying all that property in the name of their racially motivated political ideology back in 2020. They did it for the gays. They did it for the gay crosswalks, because we have to protect the gay crosswalks. And in fact, these kids actually did their scooter thing hours before this went into effect. But again, it just goes to show you who has real political power, who actually matters in our society, because we saw vandalism and destruction of untold proportions with very little consequences throughout the whole summer of love. But all of a sudden, when some people started driving improperly on these particular roads, felony hate crime charges. And again, Washington has these street takeovers. They have people doing donuts, causing damage, hurting people, breaking into places, all of that. Never going to take that seriously, never going to break that up. People get attacked when they actually try to get some quiet in their own damn neighborhood. That is not a concern, but the real concern is teenagers doing scooty scoot marks on the gay pride mural. And by the way, one of the other funniest parts about this is that the company that actually has these rentable scooters all across this particular area has decided that they're going to lock them out from being able to ride on the crosswalk because the gay crosswalk is the most hollowed institution. Now look, again, I have to be fair, I have to be honest about how I feel about law and order issues, and the scooting thing, obviously it's a minor inconvenience. You could honestly leave it, it's no big deal. on these stupid monuments because, again, they're on the crosswalk. You expect tire treads to be a thing that exists there.
And if you remember, the reason the city just repainted the crosswalk is because someone set fire to it last month. Spokane police have still not arrested anyone for that.
But the person who set this on fire, that person should obviously be arrested. He should obviously face serious charges. But it is quite telling that the only time laws change is when they impact certain protected communities. And now they're going to talk about how they changed this to a serious felony hate crime just for the gays.
And today, it is now a felony crime to deface a public symbol of pride in Washington.
Yeah, you heard that right. So it is now a felony in the state of Washington to deface the hollowed pride mural. If you put a mural on the street and God forbid somebody stops suddenly there, that is a potential felony with 5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine, because we must protect our most sacred and most hollow of institutions, which of course is the painted crosswalk. This is absurd and insane in every possible way. And again, if we had a generalized society of law and order and respect for one another, where we didn't encourage certain groups to vandalize public property, that would be different. But it's the hypocrisy right here, the absurdity right here. And honestly, hypocrisy really doesn't go to the point as good as it should, because in reality, it is rules for thee and not for me. It is the government saying that they are above when they do stuff on behalf of the Democrats, the law. But if you have a differing opinion, if you do 1/10, 1% of the damage, you will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Again, these are tire treads on the road. This is not that serious, yet across the country, we're seeing laws change, felony charges being applied in the same areas that, guess what, the Black Lives Matter riots went on unchallenged. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts on this particular situation. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, then show me by leaving a like, subscribe for more content, follow me on my social medias, support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about defacing the rainbow. Till next time.